Hello! Today we're going to be doing a nice positive video. We're going to be going through all the major parties that are in contention for Parliament next election, and we're going to be discussing what I think is their best policy that they're running on. Couple of caveats. This does not mean these are these parties' only good policies. These are just the ones that I think are the strongest. And if you think I've missed one that might be particularly strong, feel free to let me know. I also intend to eventually make a sister video to this where I go through what are probably the weakest policies presented by each party this election. So I'm going to start with National, because they're the current leader of the government. In what is quite an ironic situation, it's going to be their Kiwi Boost scheme or their KiwiSaver changes. Obviously, you can reflect on them being anti-KiwiSaver for a very long time, but objectively, this is good policy. It's going to raise both employer and employee contributions in KiwiSaver up to 6% and also make it compulsory. About 90% of New Zealand is already on it, but it is a fantastic scheme. And if you look to Australia, it's clear that compulsory saving has a strong position within their development as well as their infrastructure gains. Furthermore, they intend to give $1,500 to every child born in New Zealand, which will be automatically placed in their KiwiSaver along with the automatic enrollment. It allows for employees over the age of 65 to continue putting money into their KiwiSaver. Currently, it cuts off once you start receiving your pension. And there's also a parental leave top-up that means if you are on leave, the government will top you up to cover the KiwiSaver you're not contributing. Additionally, this will be a policy supported by a broad basis on both sides of the House, enough to confidently say it will hold even if a government changes at a later date. For Labour, I was originally going to discuss the continuation and expansion of the Apprenticeship Boost scheme. However, just today as I was recording this, they released some new policy that included a commitment to an independent parliamentary budget office. Currently, only the governing parties have full understanding and view of the government's finances and full access to the books. This makes it very difficult for opposition parties to cost their spending commitments going into elections. Long-term, an independent budget office allows for better policy to be developed both in and outside of government, as well as accounting for more transparency within the budgetary process that allows for better scrutiny from the opposition where that's needed as well. For the ACT Party, I've chosen what was kind of just originally a Paul Henry side comment, but has now grown into official policy, which is the development of a national cancer centre in New Zealand, including campuses in Auckland and Christchurch. The idea of this is to bring cancer treatment, research, clinical trials, and all the like into a world-class centre located in New Zealand. Over 30,000 New Zealanders are diagnosed with cancer each year, and we currently don't have dedicated facilities in order to take that on. New Zealand could and can become a world-class leader in cancer research and treatment that could become capable of bringing international capital and investment into New Zealand, allowing us to potentially become the global leaders in the research and development of cancer treatments. For the Green Party, I've chosen their zero-interest clean energy loans. These would be interest-free loans designed to install rooftop solar and batteries for both public and private housing. We do need to move to more expanded clean energy as a country and as a planet. Currently, one of the biggest factors that stops that transition is individuals' inability to afford to move to personal solar and personal renewables. Zero-interest loans allows the power and the onus to be given back to the people, as opposed to necessarily having to be held ransom by the gentailers' decisions to move or not move on such actions. On the topic of the gentailers, moving into New Zealand first, we have breaking up the gentailers. Currently, the four big power companies in New Zealand control about 90% of the electricity generation, and they sell it back to themselves and set the price. That means it's incredibly difficult to justify innovation in these companies, and also incredibly difficult for low-cost retailers to enter the market, and this overall keeps the prices unbelievably high compared to where they could be. Consequently, under the gentailer model, the most expensive generator is what sets the price for all electricity, and that pretty much annihilates any and all fair competition within the market. Alongside just splitting up the generation and retail sides of these companies, they also want to bring in long-term fixed-price contracts to encourage the development of new generation, and that means more power stations and more renewable energy, and that would inevitably lead to more competition, more energy resilience, and cheaper prices overall, as well as a lower reliance on any overseas energy, which is infinitely more volatile than making it ourselves. For Te Pāti Māori, this was probably the one I struggled with the most. It's a race-based party that makes race-based policy, which is something that I am very against. However, further support and financial assistance for the development of Te Reo Māori and speaking Te Reo Māori in our education curriculums is something I do support wholeheartedly. The acceptance of Te Reo in our education and development of it into our shared culture in New Zealand is something that I feel is necessary in order to take the steps to have a shared Kiwi identity in the long run. We are two people, but we need to come together, and the Māori language is a fantastic way of doing so. In a perfect world, in about 20 years, everyone would at least have some passing understanding of Te Reo Māori in a manner in which we can all share in this fantastic language and engage in it in a constructive manner. Lastly, I am going to throw opportunity in here. It's looking pretty likely that they're going to get into Parliament, so I feel pretty comfortable discussing it. The big pillar for them that I feel they should be standing on as strongly as possible is the reforming of political donation laws in New Zealand. Currently, the plan is to cap donations at $30,000 a year per party, per donor, per election. This was recommended by the Electoral Commission, which is an independent body. Furthermore, they want to ban donations from companies and trusts so that only registered New Zealand voters can donate. And they also want to lower the disclosure limits so that donations as low as $1,000 are included in the annual statements of the party. This policy goes to the core of the quality of New Zealand's democracy and the trust that we place in our system to represent us. Ultimately, big money in politics skews the battlefield in unfair ways. Power should be derived from free thought, not being bought. Thank you very much for sticking out this whole video. If you think there is something major I've missed, like I said, let me know. Would enjoy to hear what you think. Beyond that, thank you very much and goodbye.